Hi there and welcome to my video, part one of 3 parts investigating paper. I've been a paper artist for some time now, but I wanted to use this project towards my degree to experiment with paper further. I wanted to test out different ways of working other than my usual ways and try and get out my box a little, my comfort zone, to see what ways I can come up with and perhaps use paper in a different way to create textures within my illustrations. I've also read quite a few books beforehand, which I will put in my blog for reference, so you can, just in case you're interested, to have a look also. I just wanted to grasp some ideas and styles that people are already using that perhaps I've not tried as well. So here I am in this part of the video. I'm kind of trying to make it an abstract scene, so I'm just cutting out from straight lines to curves with a new craft knife, just to see how well it cuts through this. It's just typical printing paper. And then here you can see that I'm just cutting out the shapes that I've cut out and sticking them on top. I think this is quite an interesting way of using paper, by cutting it out and then applying it on top of the paper. It gives a bit of depth to an image, and because it's the same colour, it's quite nice actually. You have to look at it hard to realise what you're actually looking at. So here I'm just adding some final touches, just such as some leaves and some foliage decorations around the areas there. And once I finished putting everything down, I then used my craft knife to cut around it. I wanted to try and perhaps do some with a bit of coloured paper here. So again, I tried this new tool I've got, which is supposed to do like a stippling effect, but cutting through dots with the paper. It doesn't seem to work that well. I've only tried it a few times, so I'm trying to think what I could use it for. But it also, I find it helps if you do a line of it, it helps you just rip the paper into half. It's just another method of cutting the paper. Here I'm using double-sided sticky pads just to attach my paper cut to the underlay colour. And then I wanted to give it a funny fringe look around the edges, so using my crafting knife I made loads of lines all the way around. Sometimes you make a mistake and there ends up being a gap, but it's just being part and parcel of handmade. I've come to terms with it, and nothing needs to be perfect, especially at this stage when you're just practicing. But I think it's more of a natural effect to your work if mistakes are shown. As you can see, I lifted all the frayed ends up on that little abstract piece there, just to try out different things I don't really use. Here again I've got another stippling tool, and then this next part I used my knife and scratched it across the surface. Here I used one of my dowels and some cushion underneath to pop holes through it. I was just trying various ways to create textures on top of the paper here, even using the ruler. This was a special knife that's supposed to curve circles. It goes round as you twist it round. This next part I wanted to try weaving in and out of the paper while threading my dowel tool in and out. And this, I decided to try out doing some weaving using paper cuts. There's a lot of various things you could use this for, such as window frames, if you did bigger squares. Here I'm zigzagging the paper so it pops up like a jack-in-the-box. And then using my cut-offs, I wanted to try and fold them onto this line as though it's a washing line, to hang up the pieces of paper to look a bit like pegs along the line. So even though you cut things out, you can still reuse the bits later on for different things. That's what I like about paper. You can try and just, you know, cut everything out and see where it takes you. This next part is I'm creating different textures using paper. I saw this a few years ago of an artist who I can't remember right now, but he also cut out little triangles. If I remember, I'll put it in the blog, which when all folded out, it's a bit like the sequins, so you stroke it down and it changes to another colour, but in this case it just changes the texture. So as you can see here, I've brushed them down, then you can brush them up to close them. It's a different way of using your paper skills and adding a texture, or like the sequins, a bit of interactive for the audience to test out. Here I tried the similar thing but with like scale shapes, and I used my dowel tool to curve them upright. As you can see, they do the same effect when you swirl them up and down. Like that, for example, with the scales, you could use that on a fish illustration, paint it, and then cut out the scales on top, and then you've kind of got movement into your paper cutting. I kind of like that idea that you can bring movement into a piece of work. Here I got some paper and I really scrunched it up an awful lot, and then with some glue I've layered it over so it's creating a layer effect. This could be good for a texture of a dog's fur, maybe some bricks on a house or a roof. This next part, I got some strips of paper. I don't know where I actually learnt this from, but it was something my mum taught me when I was very young. I'm not too sure where it came from, but it was about gluing two pieces of paper together and folding them over each other simultaneously, and then when you reach the top and glue it, it then forms like a paper chain, not like a hoop one, but like more of a square one. And I've always found it quite cool. I don't really know what to use it for, but it might be in some case where it's used in like paper engineering to make something pop up, because it is quite bouncy when it's finished. There you go, I made one already there. This next part I wanted to show, when I do my portraits I like to curve the paper, so I use my other tool here. It's usually a clay tool, but it seems to work well with bending paper smoothly around the edges, to show that it can create depth and roundness from a piece of paper. As well, this is something you learn early on, is creating little sticks using rolled up paper and then gluing it down to finish it off. I always try to get them as tight as possible so they're quite sturdy. You can use them for antennae, for butterflies, or to have them. I did one which was a carousel horse, and that was the pole of the horse. which was inspired by Brittany Lee. I wanted to try and do some of her art. Here again, I've just got some paper, very simple. I've ripped it up into strips and now I'm gluing it down to create another type of texture. It's similar to the one that I did with the scrunched up paper, but I think this time it gives like a good sand. It could be good for sand or an ocean effect with the waves. Here I'm trying again a similar thing, but this time round, instead of cutting like the front of it, I'm cutting the back, so you can see the longest part is being lifted up. And then with my dowel tool, I'm just curving the ends round to make it more prominent. It does take a while sometimes, but I find it quite enjoyable being a hands-on kind of craft. There you go, and that was the finished piece. I also, as you can see, cut out some different triangles just to add some decoration around the lifted areas. Sometimes I enjoy ripping paper up like this, especially this kind of paper that has a whiteness when you rip it. It kind of creates great for borders, or for like if you're trying to create some kind of clouds in the sky. It can create like a puffy texture around the card, and it is quite a useful thing. I mean, it is even great like for if you're going to sketch out different animals and that the white areas where it's been torn off, you can then paint that and use that as some fur. Here I've cut out, starting from the middle, all different sections, and then every other one I'm rolling upwards. Again, with this, I wasn't trying to create any images or anything like that at this time. I was just playing about with the paper, experimenting, seeing what works, and while I was doing it, you know, thinking what I could use it for, and just having fun, really. Sometimes when I'm doing my art, I'm just so stuck in your ways, where this has really actually helped me, you know, think about my actual process and how I make things. Here, I saw on Instagram a lady who has actual black and white photos, and she sews parts of the photos, which they look pretty amazing. So I just wanted to test out here using some needle and thread with paper to see what kind of textures it can create, or if it would, you know, help me to think of ways I could use it in my own work. There's lots of different types of stitching. I I tried to do one or two here. I'm not a huge know-it-all when it comes to stitching, but I used to do it when I was younger, so I'm just trying my best I can here to test out sewing on the card. I also tried a longer stitch here and then over crossed it with other stitches. And then just tidying it up just to finish it off on the underneath. Make sure it doesn't come out. There you have it, some stitching on a card. It actually looked quite cute. I also thought I'd just try out one of my ink pens just to draw over it. As you can see, as I rubbed over it with the pen, it did leave some of the white of the thread, which I thought looked nice. So that was quite a few experiments there I did really love all the textures that I created on the paper. And now in part 2, I will be making my own paper.